year, but it really didn't happen that way. I had a business relationship with Betty, and we met over coffee for the first time some time back, and she sends athletes to me to do mental toughness training with some of her golfers. So we talked business, and right toward the very end of our time together, she happened to say something which, as you know, piqued my interest. She said, oh yeah, that's something about she'd been on Oprah. And I went, Oprah, really? For your golf exploits? And she said, no, it was something else. So she proceeds to tell me about the show she was on, along with the author of the book, The Gift of Fear, Gavin DeBecker. And Gavin DeBecker is the leading specialist in predicting violent behavior. So Betty was on the show with him, and he was there to applaud Betty for the way she handled an experience. And I'd like her to share that with us a little bit tonight.
Oh gosh, I never know where to exactly start with the story. It was about 12 years ago, exactly a day like today. It was cool outside and beautiful, and I decided to take my girls for a walk. They were 3 and 1 at the time. I have 4 children, by the way. The other 2 were in school. And I don't want to turn this into a 4-hour story. This guy that lived in our county had seen me on Inside Kentucky in a golf show. I was a host for many years on a local TV station. I found out years later he had seen me and had asked some people in Shelby County where I lived, and basically I was a victim during lunchtime, and he proceeded to follow me while I was walking the girls, and I was going to be his next victim. He had allegedly raped 2 women in our county that never did really come forward, unfortunately, but I was his victim for that lunch hour with my 2 girls. Long story short, he had followed us for about 45 minutes, and he posed as a lawn service salesman in November coming up to talk about lawn service. And my daughter's here, Molly. I only have one daughter here tonight.
Where's Molly? Where's Molly?
Molly's in the back.
Molly's 15 now, and she was 3 at the time. And it's really interesting when I wound up on Oprah to realize that my fear of him as he drove up the driveway with a loud truck and Confederate flags and big red truck and all that, I was afraid because my subconscious knew he had been following us the whole time. So he had followed us, and he came up the driveway, and if anybody knows me, I'm not generally afraid of anything back then at all.
You said cars came down your driveway
all the time. Talked to people all the time, helped people, everything. The second he drove up that driveway, I didn't like his truck, I didn't like him. My girls were very standoffish. He got out of the truck. It was a very loud truck, and he got out of it and petted my 2 big dogs right away. Didn't say hello, didn't say anything, wanted to make friends with the dog. And I thought, that's really odd. And there was a few seconds there where he, you're pulling up somebody's driveway and you get out to sell them something, he's not even talking. So he did that. He was looking around a lot, asked me immediately within a minute if my husband was at home. That scared me to death. My palms, I was shaking, and still proceeded to talk to him, to be nice, to listen to him, just because I thought that's what I should do. Scared me 3 or 4 times, and every time that he noticed I was getting really afraid, he would apologize and say, sorry, I'm obviously scaring you. I've got to get back to work or get back to what I'm doing, and I just want to leave my card then for your husband. He would always come back with making me feel bad.
Which, as the book says, when they put you on a roller coaster like that, you're afraid, and then the next minute they go on, and they alleviate your fear. It dilutes the real power that you need.
In his truck, and I feel so bad about telling him that he had to leave and that I was ready for him to go. I made my girls wave to him, and I'll never forget, there was something about that. I just was like, oh gosh, I feel so bad, and I made them wave. So he supposedly pulling out the driveway, I turned my back, go around the back of the house. Molly, thank goodness, she's 3, she ran in the back of the house and missed the attack, but he just came up behind me so hard to knock my shoes off my feet. I flew 4 or 5 feet with a baby on my hip. Paige, who's not here.
Through everything she's going to tell you, this is an amazing thing, because she's going to be very humble. the thing that Gavin DeBecker, the author of this book, The Gift of Fear, said was Betty, she did what all women, everybody has the power to do. Because the story doesn't end there, but everything she's going to tell you she did with that baby on her hip. Never let the baby go.
I never did, I don't know how, but I didn't let her go in the whole process. But what is interesting is I wasn't fighting back. And when I hear much horrible stories than what happened to me, I understand that feeling of frozen with fear, not being able to do anything, and just accepting that I was going to die that day or something horrible was going to happen. And it was almost a peaceful, weird, just like, okay, wow, I didn't think this, exactly what was going to happen. And Paige brought out my maternal instinct of fighting. She started crying. He was trying to get us in the back door, and she hit her head up against the brick siding, the bricking, and I had a pretty good cut and blood and everything. And the tables just turned. Now, thank goodness he didn't have a gun or a knife or whatever, but I was able to just say, you know what, these roles reversed. You're my victim, and you're mine now, and and everything. And so
I think they said she's actually in Gavin DeBecker's other book called Protecting the Gift, but how we can protect our children. And he said when she heard that scream, that the guy made a deadly mistake of attacking a mother with her baby. And that scream came up through her body and out through her fists. And evidently Betty beat that guy up. And I love this part because they don't leave us like, oh, never be afraid. I would be just like her. I would just be like stiff. I wouldn't be doing anything. And I know other women that have said, oh, not me. I'd be beaten, not me. But I would have done like Betty. But now I know I do have the power to do that. She took that guy up off the ground, clawed him, bit him, kicked him everywhere that counts. And the guy wanted away from her. He's running to his truck to get away from her, and then she wasn't finished with him.
I remember, I was pulling in his shirt and just did not, I just remember thinking, you are not getting out of here, you're not getting out of here. And I grabbed a piece of firewood, and he's in his car, and once he knew he was in his car and in reverse, he was laughing. And that was just, I'll never forget that. He was just smiling and thought the whole thing was kind of funny. And at this point, we had a witness next door that was 5 acres over, and he saw me barefoot, bleeding, with a piece of firewood and the baby on my hip, running full speed down a gravel driveway with no shoes on, knocking all the glass out of his
See, she could do that because she's a golfer. And she had that swing. So, David, I want to ask you, because you know how she was saying she waved to them? Well, what's that all about? You said it's about us women being nice even when we know we're in danger.
I think women a lot of times are taught you're supposed to be nice to everybody. It's the way you're supposed to be, accepting and cordial. I talk to people, for example, sometimes about, date rape girls being put into their drink at a bar. And I'll say, if somebody brings you a drink other than the bartender or the server, don't drink it. And I have some women say, well, that might offend them. And I'm like, well, that's really not a good idea, though. And so many times, women especially are taught and raised that they're supposed to be very cordial to people, no matter whatever fear or influence or intuition they feel. And that's really not the case.
So tell them, you told us once, a friend of yours, we're all here in Kentucky. What are we supposed to act like?
I always say turn on your New York.
Turn on your New York.
Because in Kentucky, we're very warm and friendly people. People talk about it all over the country.
And I'm from the north, so I can say that.
Yeah.
So what does that mean?
That means that put your self-protection mode on. If you go to New York or Chicago, where you're from, you don't see women with their purses hanging on their elbow, strapped across their shoulder. Or if someone approaches them, you'll see them. They do a lot of times to beg for money, and they'll just say no, and they'll keep walking. But here we stop and talk, what's your name? And so I tell people to put that shield up and turn on your New York.
And it doesn't mean you're a bad person if you're ungracious or whatever. But just to not feel like you have to be the gracious person, especially with Georgia Dorsey has people.